As of October 6, 2025, the U.S. is witnessing a major clash between federal authority and state rights over the deployment of National Guard troops to cities like Portland and Chicago. At the center is President Trump, who has been trying to federalize and send these troops to address what he describes as violent unrest impeding federal operations, particularly around immigration enforcement. This isn't just about crowd control. It's raising questions about presidential power, the role of the military in domestic affairs, and potential violations of the Constitution. The story escalated over the weekend when Trump attempted to deploy troops from Oregon, then California, and now Texas, only to face repeated blocks from federal judges. We'll explain the timeline, the reasons behind the moves, and why courts are stepping in. By the end, you'll understand the full picture. To understand this, we need to go back to the protests in Portland. For months, demonstrators have targeted federal facilities, especially U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, buildings, protesting Trump's immigration policies. These aren't massive riots like some might imagine. Reports describe them as relatively small, with actions like blocking entrances, spray painting threats, and doxing agents. However, the White House argues that these incidents are violent enough to hinder the execution of federal laws across states like Oregon and Illinois. Protests intensified after Trump's announcements, with crowds gathering outside ICE headquarters in South Portland. Signs reading "Abolish ICE" have become common, and clashes with law enforcement have involved tear gas and detentions. The administration points to events like the closure of an ICE facility for weeks due to blockades as justification for intervention. This isn't isolated to Portland. Similar deployments have already happened in cities like Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., where troops assisted with traffic control and securing federal property. Critics, including Democratic governors, see this as an overreach, accusing Trump of exaggerating threats to justify seizing control of state resources. President Trump has made it clear. He's determined to restore order. On October 4, 2025, he determined that violent incidents were impeding U.S. laws in multiple states, paving the way for federalizing National Guard units. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth issued memos calling up troops, first 200 from Oregon to Portland, then 300 from California after the first attempt was blocked, and now up to 400 from Texas for Chicago, Portland, and other areas. Trump has even floated invoking the Insurrection Act, a 1807 law allowing the president to deploy military forces domestically in cases of rebellion or when states can't maintain order. He stated he'd use it, if necessary, if courts continue to block his efforts. The White House has rebuked court rulings as, quote, egregious, arguing that protecting federal property is a core executive duty. From the administration's view, this is about law and order amid what Trump calls war-ravaged cities. But opponents argue it's political theater, especially with elections on the horizon. This is where things get dramatic. U.S. District Judge Corinne Immergut, a Trump appointee in Oregon, has been the key figure blocking these moves. On October 4th, she temporarily halted the deployment of Oregon's National Guard, ruling that the protests weren't violent or disruptive enough to justify federal intervention, and that it could violate Oregon's sovereignty under the 10th Amendment. The next day, when the administration tried to send California troops instead, Immergut expanded her order, calling it a quote, contravention of her ruling and blocking any out-of-state Guard deployments to Portland until at least October 19th. States are fighting back hard. Oregon and Portland sued first, followed by California Governor Gavin Newsom, who called it a quote. Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul filed a lawsuit on October 6th to halt deployments there, and Governor J.B. Pritzker labeled it, quote, Trump's invasion. The Trump administration has appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court, but no decision yet. In summary, Trump's National Guard push is about addressing perceived unrest, but has hit major legal walls over authority and necessity. Stay tuned for updates. This story is evolving fast. If you found this helpful, like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. Thanks for watching.